Excuse me now. Ah, just got done jogging a few miles. Been really, I'm almost 3 months sober. I ain't been smoking. Trying to prepare myself for, job opportunities. It might piss test me. And honestly, to be honest, I think I really was addicted, addicted to weed for real. But smoking on and off, but smoking for the most part. So I was 14, 28, turned 28 last February. So it was time to give it up, honestly. You're supposed to use drugs. Don't let drugs use you. But smoke weed, don't let the weed smoke you. So, but, as you can see, yeah, jogging. I feel good though. Uh, I'm getting there, what I'm saying? I feel like it's going through a lot of mental strains. Um, I'm just at that point. I just eliminate excuses. You can sit here and blame your upbringing, your baby mama, all this shit. You can blame the whole world, white supremacy, systemic racism, but let's be honest with you, I was just ignorant to a lot of things. I ain't saying I had the worst parents, but I mean, to be honest, and a lot of, I respect my parents, I love them, but, what I'm saying, just, they really didn't prepare me for like financial literacy, and given they probably didn't know some of these things or, whatever, some things are passed down. Like ignorance can be passed down, I believe, I don't mean there's no ill will, but I just was not prepared. You know what I'm saying? I had to teach myself how to drive. I had to really teach myself how to be a man. My mom taught me how to wash my ass. Told me to go to school. She made me get up and go get my first job. You know, but other than that, she was whooping my ass for making all else. But she didn't give me no tutor. You know what I'm saying? She didn't put me in no extracurricular programs. You know what I'm saying? Was single mother given 3 kids, but once you have these kids, ain't about you. And given she's a human, I can give her grace. But there's certain things. Me as a father now, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm far from perfect. I'm far from perfect. I'm far from perfect, but there's some things I say and I do. I would never do my child. Given whatever the case might be, her. I call I was my sister and my older sister, my younger brother. What I'm saying? Their father is my father. You know what I'm saying? That's my dad. He's not my biological dad, but that's the man that helped raise me. Gave somebody to call me a dad. I gave me somebody to call a dad. And Gibby wasn't perfect, but I love him. I love him. You know what I'm saying? I never disrespect him. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't perfect. He's far from perfect either, but I forever got love and respect for that man. That being said, like I didn't find out to my biological father. I was raised like I was raised that, can't treat me no different. Um, my I'm gonna just say stepdad, just for context. No disrespect, no disrespect to my dad, Big Tony. But it's my truth. Like nobody, they didn't care about my mental health. Or they probably wasn't aware of my mental health. My little brother being a junior, him and my older sister sharing the same last name. I don't look like them. I look different. I have my mother's last name, which even is not even her biological dad's last name. That's her stepfather or siblings. Some of her siblings, dad last name. So it's just grew up basically just I don't want to say I grew up in a worse household, but it's basically just not a unstable household. You know what I'm saying? Primarily raised by a single parent. Nobody really teach me, how to drive. Remember how to buy my own car, teach myself how to drive. You know what I'm saying? You know. Like, you know, I don't know why nobody ever took me under their wing, showed me how to fucking, you know, fix a roof or go fishing or, you know, emphasize me like motherfuckers tell you, oh, go to the military or go to college, but don't give you, you know, that's just a vague statement. You know what I'm saying? Teach you have a plan. You know, why if you go to college, what's your plan when you go to college? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, uh, excuse me, I'm a little tired. It's a rainy couple miles, and you know, I'll probably go deeply some of these stuff. Say I'm not trying to harp, but you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, meet my biological dad when I'm a teenager. You know, this dude, he's alright. I'm saying he's the worst guy, but I hate to talk bad about my parents. They, you know, even though they're imperfect, you know what I'm saying? When I was 18, 19, I became a youth pastor or whatever. You know, I'm not super religious anymore, but you know, time of my life when I'm sleeping on the street, sleeping on my homie couch, you know, I met my Pastor Don, shout out my boy Don. And one of these sermons, this white man, Pastor Lamb, he just talked about he preached this sermon. He's saying, you know, what's in your heart will, you know, it's going to come out, inevitably it's going to come out. It's going to show whatever's in your heart. So it was just basically just summing up, and I might be, uh, I might not be saying it perfectly, but I remember he just saying what's in your heart is going to come to light. So I remember at that time when I was 19, I just had a lot of pain in my heart, like hatred in my heart, like just blaming everything on my parents, and it was just like, man, I'm almost at the point where I'm not talking to them then for a full year. Like, damn, I'm out here in these streets, sleeping on my homie couch. You know, high school dropout, mom kicked me out the house. I never really lived with my stepdad for real. Like, we stayed with him, you know, every other weekend. Him and my mom was married for years. You know, well they was together and married. They was married for years, but they was together for real. I remember just really for a couple of years we lived with him for real. But you know, like I said, just when I really just needed that guidance, somebody put me under their wing. I felt like nobody really was there. That's how I felt. You know, and no disrespect. I'm not saying you never been there before me. You know, but for real, I feel like pivotal times. For real, I felt like nobody really was there. I feel like it was really the strangers, people that's not blood related, really there for me when I really needed that family guy. And it's okay, you know, like I said, he gave me somebody to call a father. Like, I'm not trying to harp on that, but when I saw my Pastor Lamb, just like I remember, basically, I summed it up. I learned how to just forgive my parents and just forgive a lot of people at church. I forget, and not, you know, I hate to, you know, sound like the typical, you know, the Christian stereotype, but I really need to, you know, learn how to just can't hold things in your heart. That shit is heavy, you know, heavy heart. I think that's what he's talking about, just having a heavy heart. So, you know, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that my parents ain't never, I'm not, you know, people had it way worse than me. I'm not gonna, you know, sit here and say, oh, I just had the worst fucking childhood, whatever, but, you know, it's just like, just basically just me being I'm paying, all I'm saying is I'm paying for the mistakes I made now about, you know, just making decisions, making a lot of soul decisions without that proper guidance, you know, people usually will have from their you know, their parents, you know what I'm saying? Like, excuse me. Excuse me. But so like I said, you know, like I met my biological dad. Now it's just like this guy right here, man. He's like, you know, charismatic guy, good looking guy. You know, it felt good to see somebody that looks just like you. You know what I'm saying? You go your whole life, you're not really seeing people that look like you. So of course it felt good. You know, it's a little, you know, felt a little in between because it's like it's new territory. Like I said, I was raised by my sister and brother's biological father. So it's just like, and then my mom, the way she broke the news without him. So it was just like, but you know, I'd be lying if it didn't feel good. You know, say like, damn, it's my real. Like you knew, like it's just like damn, like you knew something, like when you know something, but you can't prove it. Like, oh, you look like you look like your Uncle Jakey, or this and all this shit. You know, but like, damn, motherfucker, just damn, got a whole fucking, I don't want to say I'm a bastard, but you know what I'm saying. So, but it's just like, man, it's like I try to connect with him, but it's just like he's type motherfucker, just like he'll say he'll do something that don't come through. You know what I'm saying? Like I just remember like simple shit. Say he give me some money and this and that, and you know, to be honest with you, like I never really wanted nothing from my biological dad. Just was love and just you know, some guidance for real, just him to be there. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I grew up in just like unstable household. You know what I'm saying? Like my mom just used to. I hate to talk bad about my mom, but you know, my mom just do a lot of say a lot of shit to me, just a lot of discouraging shit. Just like same amount of love she gave to me, she the other hand she gave me the same amount of hate. You know how I took it. Just like you know, I feel like I was just always the black sheep of my family. You know, so just a lot of trauma, a lot of trauma. Little motherfuckers get drunk and just do whatever, say whatever to you, wake up and they act like they don't remember, show favoritism towards my other siblings. You know, like then again, it's my truth. I'm not saying to talk down on my family, respect to all my mothers, you know what I'm saying? But it's just me getting it out feels good. I need to say these things. You know, I'm not doing this. You know, people can take it how they want to take it. You honestly, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I was just raised around narcissists, you know what I'm saying? Like people I'm not saying motherfuckers didn't do shit on your Christmas or some birthdays, but it's just like 98% of the year, well, you're pouring into your child, you know? I'm not saying she haven't made no sacrifices, but at certain things, just she put herself in certain positions, you know? From my point of view, you know, talking to other people and just, you know, talking to her myself, you know, just, and like I said, and I put responsibility on my dad too, even he can say this and that about my mom, but you wasn't there, you know, you wasn't there. And like I said, respect to my stepfather, you know, who I acknowledge as my father. You know, he's way more of a father. You know, me being the dad, having a child of my own. You know, a father is just more than just blood. It's being there. So, you know, of course, he only know how to raise. He can only, like I say, nobody's perfect. So he only can go. He probably just did the best and do the best that he, you know, what he knows. You know, I can have my rights about them. You know, but you know, to make a long story short, it's just like even to this day, like certain names of my parents, man. It's just like I can go on and on, but it's like I'm 28, pushing 30, man. It's just life goes on. You know what I'm saying? Sure, I can say, hey, yo, ain't teach about credit or how to be in relationships. Honestly, how to be a parent. You're just like, yeah, motherfucker taught me right for wrong. If you get locked up, hey, you know, you're gonna be in jail. Consequence to your actions, of course that. Beat your ass, use some dope shit, get hit in your fucking head. You know, you learn. I really just say I was in the streets. I'm not saying I was always tough person, but I was around that shit. I grew up around that shit. I grew up in inner city Chicago. I'm not saying I grew up in the worst neighborhood, but I grew up around motherfucking members of my family off drugs or other people's families on drugs, my community. You know, motherfuckers that look out for you and off within the crackheads or, you know what I'm saying? I grew up around niggas with guns, all type. My peers had guns. You know what I'm saying? Just a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? I been jumped on. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Fought different gangs, and you know, you basically when you're affiliated just by being where you're from or being just hanging out with your peers. You know, so but I've never been a tough guy. I always been, you know, I might not be as goofy as I used to be, but you know, I always just really chill, watch movies, love ladies, you know, play basketball. That's always been my thing. You know, just chill, probably smoke some weed. You know, so I always try to prevent myself being around the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like I duck negative influences. I'm not saying I never been influenced. I never say I never did no bullshit. But most part, I always stay to my own lane. And honestly, that's probably why I'm still alive. And I probably which inevitably probably led me from leaving Chicago. You know, so I know I'm probably going all over the fucking place, but I think I'm just burning. Just had to get this shit out. I probably go more in depth with some of the things I mentioned. You know, the last couple of years been having a custody battle, ongoing custody battle. You know, I was in a relationship with my daughter's mom for a few years, been co-parenting for some years now. It's just for me, sacrifices for. You know, I hate to talk bad about my daughter's mom. I go more in depth about this subject in the future. You know, uh, there's a lot of disheartening things I've been dealt with, a lot of trauma, like a lot of things that's triggering some of those childhood traumas. You know, it's just, but life just keeps going. So, I've been feeling good since I stopped smoking. Not where I want to be at financially. I got a good woman in my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm in a relationship the last few years. I'm just trying to be a better man, and like I said, and I take accountability for a lot of my actions too, because I knew better in a lot of different times in my life when I made some mistakes too. So, but it's just like I'm learning just certain habits is just in you, but it's just, you gotta make great substitutions. Even when I was vegetarian for a couple of years, this guy, while substituting those meat with different substitutions, you gotta substitute habits. You know, that's what it's all about. And you know, I'm on my journey. I'm 28. I'm you know, pushing my 30s. Yeah, motherfucker gonna call me uncle. Not a fucking uncle. You ain't an uncle till you're 35. You know, excuse me, my shit look a little better. We just hopped out when just went straight jogging. But yeah, man, you know, I just wanted. I'm not trying to hold y'all too long, man. For real, just wanted to just vent a little bit, man. Just, you know, you just can't. I'm just it ain't never too late to just change, and you can't let your fucking traumas hold on to you, and don't give a fuck. I'm starting to like, yeah. Even though I've been saying I don't give a fuck what motherfuckers think, you know, deep down inside you care. You give a fuck about. You kind of think you care about motherfuckers. Let me not say this, or let me not do this, motherfucker feel type of way. But our reality, like I said, a lot of people at times ain't nobody really checking up on me on a fucking daily. Ain't nobody really checking to see if I'm alive. Like I say, little parents, cousins, aunties, sisters, brothers, siblings, whatever. Like, you know. So, and I'm not saying this to harp on. Maybe I'm not the most, and I'm not saying I'm probably been the most perfect son, perfect sibling. You know, everybody got their own truths. But truth of the matter, man, you know, like you're the driver, the vehicle, your life. You know what I'm saying? Life is like a fucking car, like a vehicle, man. You driving this motherfucker. You're the director of your own movie. So, you know, maybe some movies are bad, but you know, you got opportunities to make a better script, a better film. Not saying you should be a fake, be an actor, but you know, we all personalities, man. We're all. I don't want to say I don't want to go on my own fucking soapbox saying none of this shit real, but man, just, you know, reality is what you make it. You know, that being said, you know, so, you know, man, just, you know, I just want to say peace and light to everybody, man. Just everybody that, you know, just been through a lot of shit. If you relate, if you don't relate, you know, peace to everybody that don't fuck with me or feel type of way about the video. I really don't give a fuck if you feel type of way, honestly. You know, just know, like, I don't got no bad intentions to anything I say. And I'm doing it for my mental health, not your mental health. Honestly, if it helps you, it helps you. If it don't help you, get the fuck out my page. Nobody support me anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, motherfuckers ain't, and, you know, you don't have to support, you know, so I'm not entitled to anybody's support, money, or attention, you know, at the end of the day. So, we doing everything self-made, you know what I'm saying? You got no choice. The life will keep going, if you like it or not. That's how I realized I get older, so, you know, so, peace.